All right, I want to welcome everyone back. We've been talking about internal family systems for a number of weeks now and talking about working with your emotional parts. Each one of us has emotional parts inside of us. We have lots of different emotions. We have lots of different experiences that we've had in life, and all those could be considered parts of us that at any given time could arise and influence our particular the people that we're interacting with or the circumstances that we're interacting with. So today I want to talk to you about distractors and exiles. So let's see if we can sort of get an idea of what distractors are. Perhaps you're the kind of person that listens to the radio, even though you've heard the headlines of the day already 5 times, but you're still listening to the radio. Right. For some people back, I don't know if we even have newspapers anymore, but back in the day, we used to read the newspaper, and we've already read the newspaper, but we pick it up again and we start thumbing through it again for some reason. Some of us will eat, but we're not really even hungry. We're just eating to eat. Or we're scanning the television for something to look at to distract us. Or, specifically for young people these days, cell phones are kind of glued to their ears, or they're always racing to fill those empty spaces as soon as some kind of stimulation level eases off, right? Maybe it's not just young people, maybe it's old people like me as well. So distractor parts of us have a function, and the function is that they help us avoid the inner chatter. And the inner chatter, I think all of us have this kind of inner chatter. We have worry parts that worry. We have critical parts that are critical of ourselves and others. We have perfectionistic parts that want us to do everything a certain way. And we have planning parts that the gears are always turning. And so the distractor parts serve a function that they can help us avoid the inner chatter of all those other parts. When those other parts have gotten too loud, or we've been paying too much attention to those parts, distractor parts can come in and let us have a little fun, let us relax a little bit. So that's the idea. Here is Roma the ruminator, all right? And Roma the ruminator is one of those worry parts. Right? She replays situations over and over. She puts them on the reel-to-reel, and she has us watch them. What is she doing? She's reminding us of the pain that we've been through. She's reminding us of all the painful experiences that we've had. And if you're anything like me, you have a big pile of painful experiences, sitting next to you like she does. And every time these are played, obviously, we're hoping for a better outcome to these things that we replay. We're hoping if we replay it, that somehow it's going to be a little bit better than the time before. Parts like Roma can activate distractor parts, right? Because this gets a little depressing if we just sit there and think about all the difficult things that have ever happened in our lives. So often a distractor part will arise when someone like Roma the ruminator is taking up space in the living room, so to speak, of our lives or our consciousness. Distractor parts are like a screensaver of the psyche, right? So if I'm worrying about something, then I might get this distractor thought that comes up that says, watch TV, play a game on your phone or something like that. It's like a screensaver, because if I continue to worry about that thing, it's going to burn that image, just like on a computer. If you leave an image on a computer for too long, it'll burn that image onto the screen. And so the distractor part serves as like a screensaver to say, hey, why don't you do something else? Distractor parts allow us to shift gears and get away from these kind of ruminations that can take us down into a spiral or take up just too much space in our lives. Distractors can also sometimes distractors themselves can stay around too long and keep other useful parts down. And so we have to watch this. Distraction can be a good thing for a short period of time, but if that takes over, we can kind of get stuck there. And that wouldn't be good or healthy for us. So some of the parts that are going to need to emerge at some point are what we would call exiles. Exiles are parts of us that, for a variety of reasons, are not allowed in the living room. And when I say living room, I'm just talking about our consciousness. It's like the things that we're conscious of, like what's right in front of me right now. What am I conscious of? I'm conscious of the fact that I'm doing a video for a group of people, right? That part of me, the presenter part of me, is in the living room right now, right? And so there are other parts of me that I don't want to be in the living room right now, and I will not allow them into the living room right now because it's not the right time. Often those exile parts are locked away and they can't be easily activated, right? I think about young boys. I hear stories every single day of my life when I'm talking to people, and I talk to men who were boys at one time, and boys who were vulnerable or sensitive. They had vulnerable or sensitive parts. And whenever those parts came up as a young boy, they were punished or shamed by their peers or by a father or by a coach. Those experiences are like exiles in that man's life right now. He may have a number of experiences like that are sort of exiled. For girls, girls when they were growing up, if they were smart or if they were aggressive or if they had competent parts, sometimes those parts were punished or discouraged by their social surroundings. And so, that's why we have what's called like girl power now, right? Because we're trying to let girls know that they are competent, they are smart, and that they can do a lot of things. So in terms of exiles, exiles carry pain and they carry memory. If you look down at the bottom of my picture here, you see some kind of lost souls down there. And you also see some, I don't know, it looks like some people like are in an acorn or something like that, or in like an egg of some sort. These are the exiles. They carry pain and they carry memories. And we have other parts that we call manager parts that work to repress those exiles. Why? Because the managers inside of us fear that the living room of our lives is going to get flooded by these painful memories and feelings. If you like let one of those out of the egg, so to speak, it's just going to take over and it's just going to be a mess, right? But there's a cost to that. And the cost is that the manager parts of me, and you can see some of the manager parts, they're kind of, I can't really point to it on the screen, but it's the characters that are sort of on the bottom part, but across the way. They're manager parts. Those parts have to stay in the living room. They have to stay in our consciousness at all times. They have to be vigilant, and that's the cost. It's a high cost. They have to spend all that time in the living room to be vigilant, to keep these exiles from emerging. And it's kind of like holding a ball under like the pool, in the pool or in the ocean. You hold that ball down, but you can only hold it for so long before one of those exiles is going to pop up. I'll get to that in a minute. But here in this group, we talk about our spirit-led self. It's the part of us, we approach this from a Christian standpoint. So from a Christian standpoint, we know we have the Spirit of God living in us. So it's our spirit-led self, which knows these exiles really well. And the managers will not allow the spirit-led self to take a central role in the system because of fear. Because of fear that those exiles are going to come out into the open and are going to mess things up for the person. So despite the manager's best efforts, life is going to trigger the exiles. At some point, you can only hold that ball under the water for so long, it's going to pop up. And there may be parts of you that try to keep these exiles down, but you can't do it forever. So just a few questions to try to get us thinking about being emotionally healthy when it comes to our distractor parts and our exiles. I want you to think about your typical day. At what point do you find yourself going to an automatic distraction or an automatic distractor? Maybe it's like the radio's got to be on in the morning. It just has to be on, even if you're not like paying attention to or listening to it, or reading your phone, or watching TV while you're eating, because you just can't have that quietness. I remember going to it's a monastery, I guess, that I was visiting for a number of days. And in that place when you ate in silence. And I live in a family with 4 girls. So I don't know what it's like for there to be silence at mealtime. So that was that was an interesting experience for me. I hadn't experienced that before, right? I want you to look at your transition times, like the transition times of your day when you're transitioning from one thing to another thing. We would call them empty spaces, right? What do you fill those spaces with? And then also, I would encourage you to list your most common distractors. What are those things that distract you? And what seems to be the function of each one of those distractors? See if you can figure that out. And then how do you feel after you have engaged in that kind of distracting type of activity? And are those things that you're doing to distract yourself, are they working for you? And if they're not, to take a serious look at whether or not you should use them or try to find some healthier distractions. All right, if you want to join us live, we do this each week. You can go to meetup.com/check your compass, or you can check out our videos that we upload on a regular basis to YouTube or Facebook. I want to acknowledge that many of the ideas drawn from today's talk come from a book by Tom Holmes and Lori Holmes, along with the illustrations that were done by Sharon Eckstein. Thanks for listening.